The first Indianapolis 500 race was a perfect expression of its times, featuring new machines and courageous men. 80,000 spectators came to watch the first running on May 30th, 1911. They arrived by special trains from New York, Cleveland, St. Louis, and Chicago, and from surrounding states by buggies and cars and trolleys from all over Indiana. In the stands were men who had fought at Gettysburg and men who had charged up San Juan Hill with Teddy Roosevelt. Even Henry Ford was there. He took this picture. Admission was $1. In the pits were the fruits of long work by major manufacturers and race car drivers. The new race was important enough and rich enough to bring the 1910 American Automobile Association champion Ray Harun out of racing retirement. They called him the Bedouin because of his Arabian ancestry. Harun qualified as one of 40 starters, driving his Indianapolis-produced Marmon Wasp. But he was almost disqualified at the last minute because the Wasp was a one-seater with no riding mechanic.
There was no rule at that time that said that you had to carry a riding mechanic, but just everybody did. And so during practice, Ray Harun had this specially built Marmon with a single-seat streamlined body and no riding mechanic. That was the idea, because you could save weight by not carrying one. And there were complaints from the other teams that he was a safety hazard. And one of the roles of riding mechanics at the time was to keep the driver aware of whether somebody was coming up on one side or the other, and they would, do this kind of thing. And so they complained that he was a safety hazard out there by himself. So how he got around it was to go downtown and buy a mirror. It was an 8 by 3 inch mirror, and he put 4 rods, mounted them above the cowling, and then put the mirror on top. And it was up like this, so he could drive along and look up and see what was going on behind him, and that silenced everybody.
It is believed that this was the first rear-view mirror used on an automobile of any kind. The 1911 race is believed to be the first mass rolling start race with a lead car used to pace the field. The pace car was driven that first year by Carl Fisher. Imagine the experience of driving in these early races. The cars have wooden steering wheels and no real suspension. For 500 miles, every brake vibrates right through to the driver's hands. Many cars burn as much oil as gasoline, so there's slippery goo on you, on the car, and on the track. During the race, your riding mechanic pumps oil and gasoline, watching for traffic and paying attention to the gauges. The cars are top-heavy. The mechanical brakes barely work. There are no seat belts, and on your head is a leather helmet or cloth cap. Yet, you love it. For the glory, for the money, and yes, for the adrenaline rush of speed. Tires of the day were made of cotton cord under a thin coating of rubber. They were hard, but vulnerable to quick wear and catastrophic blowouts. The wily veteran Ray Harun decided he could save his tires and win the race if he averaged a steady 75 miles an hour, even though his Wasp could go faster. He was right. Harun won at an average speed of 74.602 miles per hour, with only 4 tire changes. His nearest competitor needed 14 sets of tires. At the end of the race, Harun was so exhausted he had to be lifted out of his cockpit. Then he retired from driving again, this time for good. The first 500 had all the hallmarks of later races: danger, drama, technology, controversy, and involvement by manufacturers from around the world. The race wasn't particularly safe, but also wasn't a bloodbath by the standards of the times. One riding mechanic was thrown from his car and killed. Another was thrown and injured. In all, there were 4 injuries and 1 death. Some controversy was provided in 1911 by the idea that Ralph Mulford may have won the race, but was not credited with a lap due to the distraction caused by this rather incredible accident. The first race also included international drivers and automobiles. The Italian Fiat was there, along with the German Benz. From the beginning, the Indianapolis 500 was a very American institution, while embracing a melting pot of cars and drivers.